Let me acknowledge present with us our Minister of Education and my permanent secretary. I say my permanent secretary because she is permanent secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, which obviously I lead, but also in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. And let me also acknowledge permanent secretary in the Ministry of Education and the head of the Heart Trust NSTA, and Dushyant Savadia. You would have heard Dushyant's story, his own life experience, and how he has used that experience to create a business in technology. But it is not just a business. It is about how we improve our living. And indeed, that is what technology is about, how we use our knowledge, our skills, we develop that into a competence which we use to solve real world problems. My experience with Dushyant is that he is very committed to Jamaica. And I'll tell you a backstory behind all of this. The pandemic had just hit Jamaica. And we were scrambling as to how we would manage the incoming passengers into Jamaica. This was just before we took the decision to close our borders. And some of you may recall that there were flights coming in with persons who had contracted the virus and who we could not find. And we looked around for a solution. How could we track? And Dushyant had reached out to us to say, hey, we would be willing to work with the government to develop a solution. And it took us a little time to make that connection firmly. But once we made the connection and we sat down as a team, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of National Security, the Office of the Prime Minister, and we looked at all that we needed, Dushyant mobilized all the resources that he had in his own business, and together we created the solution, the Jamkovit app, which, as you would have heard, is now being used in many countries right across the region. But out of that came another opportunity. We recognized that the pandemic not only affected our health as a country, but it also affected our economy. The last statistics from the Statin and the PIOJ suggest that our economy would have lost 10% of its value. That's huge. How are we going to recover? We have always known that Jamaica's future will lie in our embrace of technology. And I've always been saying to this country, to my ministers, to students when I talk to them in the schools, that it is one thing to be a consumer of technology. It is a whole new ballgame to be creators of technology. My days at the Ministry of Education, Minister Williams, this is what I would have said to former permanent secretary in the Ministry of Education, Audrey Swill, that we wanted to create a Jamaican with the socio-emotional intelligence to be able to solve real-world problems without anger, without violence, without fear, without ignorance, but through the embrace of knowledge and reason. And when we talk about coding, that is exactly what it is. Real world problems translated into a logical schematic, meaning ordered in a rational and reasoned way, converted into a language that machines can understand and execute. That is it. To get to that, we need to have young persons, young people, who we put through our education system, who are taught to reason and problem solve. And that is the basis of developing a technology culture. So one of the things that I would want us to start to reckon with as a society is that, you know, we're all using cell phones. We're probably, all of us now are exposed to some form of computer. We are interfacing with computers. And for us, we are saying that that is technology. That is just the face of technology. I want us now to go behind that interface and actually now create the interface. Look around us at the problems we have and see how we can transform those problems into digital representations, code them into machine languages, and use that to create solutions. Indeed, that is the growth economy. And if you think of it, the industries that are growing rapidly now, all of them use this strategy. They're using it with cyber and artificial intelligence. As Dushyant pointed out, he wakes up in the morning and Alexa turns on all his appliances. I don't believe the one about the toothbrush, but that's what it is. Today, you can go into your home and the lights come on and they go off. All of that is technology. How is that created? We see it as technology, obviously, and we will purchase it, but I want us to go further. I want us to create it. I want us to create it. And that is what this Coding Academy is about. It is the first step. Now, Jamaica has had great experience in creating new industries. We've created a bauxite industry. We've created a tourism industry. Most recently, we have created a business process outsourcing industry. We are in the early stages of creating a logistics industry. This is the first tiny step in creating a coding industry. India, for example, the Ukraine, China, has very strong and robust industries in this area, particularly India. And Jamaica is well positioned to be a leader in this region in coding. So when the opportunity presented itself with Dushyant having already placed his stake in the ground here in Jamaica and coding, and I've seen that coding firsthand when we have to make, for example, changes to the Jamkovit app because of some change in policy, and that is done overnight. And you're coding locally here and abroad, and you're bringing together at times, you know, maybe 50 to 100 coders sitting down, analyzing the problem. You know, for example, a situation may have occurred where we would have had to change protocols about people presenting a test to enter the country. That was not in the app before, and we would have had to pull all the resources together and figure out how do we tell the software to accept when you upload your negative test. And there's a lot of work behind that. So the people who are uploading their tests, they are saying, I'm going to use technology. I'll scan and upload the picture. But behind that, there's a whole lot of work. And it takes people who are trained to be able to tell the computers to recognize this and say, yes, this represents a positive, or this represents a negative, accept this or don't accept this. And that is what we're doing. We are going to train our Jamaicans to be able to do this kind of programming. Now, if you stop just for a moment to think of this, the services that you could provide as a result of this. Incredible. The benefit, exponential. A totally new industry providing new opportunities for young Jamaicans. We have tried it before in the past, but what is different this time? This time, we have mobilized the entire government behind creating what we call the digital society. Coding and the industry we seek to create is one element of that. There are other elements which we are doing. For example, you would have heard us through Minister Vaz in Parliament outlining the development of our broadband backbone and network for the country, which is very important. You would have seen the government being very forward-thinking in creating the national identification system, which is not just about identity, it is also about all the structures that have to be in place to be able to capture identity, store identity, use identity for verification. And now we have another element, which is training our young people in the development of the software. So Jamaica is putting in place the pieces to create the digital society. So today I'm very happy that we are at this point. We will have 100 coders trained. And what I'm also very happy about is that, in our training experience, sometimes we have been generalists. So we would establish a course at Hart or some other institution, and it is a course that is not necessarily structured towards employment immediately upon graduation. So you may graduate, but when you get into the place of work, you still have to be trained because the courses are general. This course is not a generalist course. You're going to be immersed into what you will be required to do in the world of work. So there is an apprenticeship element built in, which we have always wanted in our training, so that the competence is not just having the technical and academic knowledge of the subject, but you now have the applications base of the knowledge. You can take the knowledge that you have, apply it to real-world solution, and transition immediately into the place of work without further training, because that is how the course is designed. And this, we have always wanted our training to be demand-driven and aligned with industry. And this course is aligned with industry. The persons who are trained will have employment and will be able to transition into coding jobs without having to go through further training. They are work ready at the end. And that is a big difference. So ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to launch this, I call this a groundbreaking initiative, a new industry being born before our very eyes. And the other element which I wanted to point out is that this is truly a public-private partnership. partnership between the government of Jamaica through the Heart Trust, NSTA, and private sector group, AMBER. And that will be the modality going forward. We encourage other private sector groups to come on board. Let us know what your training needs are. In fact, I believe this is now the modality that we have taken on with the business process outsourcing sector. There might be other industries, other businesses out there that have similar training needs. And I'm also very happy to see that online we have representatives from MasterCard and Amazon, two global companies that certainly we hope to partner with to utilize the skills that we are going to be developing here.